Intro. You went live.
So
roll the intro.
I can still do it.
You can.
I can still do it. Hi,
everybody.
We're live at Bell's, and we're going to do our intro. Are we ready?
Normally I do this, and now Brian's go.
Let's go.
Intro.
And we're live.
Nobody saw anything. So if we sound a little, echoey or something, we apologize. We're working with our, portable setup here tonight. So I think we'll be all right. You guys let us know if you can't, hear us or anything like that.
Yeah, anybody
We did
just
some testing.
leave a comment, and we'll fiddle with stuff. But as you can see, we're here.
We've got an engineer in the background. You can't see it, but
We're here at the Eccentric Cafe, filming live with Ian Gould. This is episode 48, and we're going to talk about the Bell's homebrew program and the homebrew competition.
We sure are.
So first, though, to get into it, we typically drink or talk about what we got in our glass. What are we drinking tonight? And as you can see, we've got some beautiful glassware from Bell's. We've got tables filled with Bell's. They really laid it out here for us.
get a little spoiled tonight.
I know, this is fucking
Yeah.
awesome. So I'm actually drinking an Upper Hand beer, Upper Hand Light, right?
Yep.
I think that's what we put in the glass. So thank you, Ian, for setting up the spread for us. What do you got? What are you
Of
drinking?
course, I'm drinking my favorite Bell's beer, Amber Ale. Good standby. Just a freaking delicious beer.
All right, I have in this nice fancy glass. Oh, it's delicious. This is the Grisette, which, if I recall, Belgian ale, dry hopped with sauce.
Yep, that's it.
All right.
Now I'm rocking the ginger lime ale, which tastes like ginger and lime in a beer. So
Weird.
my girlfriend's hell, pretty much, but I can get it up. It's great.
Oh, Brian, your mom's on. Say hi, Connie. Hi, Connie.
Oh yeah. Hi, Mom. We got a bunch of regulars in already. So hi everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Really,
Yeah.
we're really excited. We, as you guys know, are really into homebrew competitions and feedback and brewing better beer and stuff like that. And the Bell's Homebrew Competition obviously didn't happen last year because of COVID. So we're excited to talk to Ian, who is organizing it this year, and we're excited for its kind of re-kickoff. And sort of its reorganization too, right, Ian?
Yeah, we're kind of starting from scratch with the year off. We had some time to reflect on what we could do better, how we could change it. I elicited feedback from homebrewers with really what would they like to see, and I asked you guys. And, I wanted to sort of think about, we are already running a unique competition. It's free to enter. You're given the word. Everybody's kind of starting from the same place. But I was wondering if there are things that we could do better. And so we're kind of taking the year to reevaluate and change some stuff up and hopefully make a better experience for everybody. In a lot of ways, hopefully.
Right on.
Yeah.
So before we dive into that, Ian, what is your role, or tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do for Bell's?
Yeah. So my role is senior store clerk. So I'm a full-time store clerk at the Bell's General Store. I'm kind of the de facto go-to for homebrew expertise. I spend a lot of time managing the homebrew side of the store. Those of you that haven't been into the store or haven't been in a while, the store is basically split in half. We have the homebrew side where you can have malt, hops, yeast, homebrew equipment, anything you need. Also cider, mead, and wine. We sell equipment for all that stuff as well. And then, of course, we sell all of Bell's beer there. And then we have sort of your general gift shop merchandise. So it's a combination retail, homebrew, and beer sales. I spend a lot of time doing educational programming So just about everybody in the store is at least a Cicerone certified beer server.
Oh, that's awesome.
We do we homebrew every single month with everybody in the store. The clerks that work there all take turns designing a recipe, and we brew it, we sell it in clone kits. So a lot of what I focus on is the homebrewing community, making sure that I'm providing resources that are new, that people want, the best possible quality ingredients that we can get in the store. And then for the, my big passion and kind of what I do downtown in a bigger picture is providing educational resources. So if people want to become BJCP certified, or if they want to become a certified Cicerone or advanced Cicerone, I build education, modules or curriculums to help people get to where they want to go for their beer knowledge. Bell's and myself are a firm believer in beer education, and that, people that want to be in the beer industry and want to have a career in beer, we want to equip them with the skills that they need. And also along the way of doing that, you end up creating people that love homebrewing. It's just it goes hand in hand. And I think everybody here is a testament to that. Homebrewers, by and large, know the most about beer, and they're the most informed consumers that we have. It helps when the people
Whether
that
you
are,
want them or not.
yeah, right. For better or for worse, they're a huge part of our community. So that's kind of the long and short of it is what I do here is a lot of education, homebrewing. I love it.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, I love beer.
Yeah. We do, and you just recently got your own BJCP certification, right?
Yep, I did. I did my
During COVID.
Yep, during COVID, which is weird.
Yeah.
So starting to get my hours in, and we're working up the ranks of BJCP tests and hours of judging. I'm also working on my certified Cicerone exam, so August 6th, I'll have that done. So it's a lot of that, a lot of sensory training. I'm honestly very lucky to work where I work and have the resources and a company that wants me to do those things, and keeps pushing me to do more and learn more.
So for those like my mom, or that maybe aren't so much into the competitive scene as far as beer competitions goes, what is the BJCP? What's the significance of you having that certification?
Yeah, so BJCP, or the Beer Judge Certification Program, is sort of the organization that sanctions beer competitions, and they also kind of have the go-to style guidelines. So when you are drinking an American IPA, one of the ways it's an American IPA is because the BJCP put in a lot of work to tell you what it is, generally, and there's some debate. And, we also have the Brewers Association style guidelines, which are also fantastic. They change, more frequently than BJCP's does. But it's significant because, BJCP represents a standard for which homebrewers and brewers can guide themselves by. When we're talking about competitions, generally you're trying to fit yourself into a style, and those guidelines give you the exact parameters that you need to fit into in order to be successful. And it's not saying that you have to creating a boring beer. So if we're doing an American IPA, that it has to have Cascade hops, that it has to be exactly 7%. But it gives you an area to focus in on what makes a good IPA. And so that is one of the things I think is significant about BJCP and why it's important to have people that, are well in tune with those guidelines. Not everybody needs to have it, because that might be a little overkill. But if you got a couple people sitting at a table and that, know these really specific quantitative qualities of beer, then everybody else can focus on, the non-tangible components of beer. And that's what I kind of like about judging.
It's actually an episode we've talked about doing, and I think we will. And I talked to you about it. Ian was kind enough to judge the last Keepers of Craft Keepers Cup competition that we did. And so I'd like to get you and some other BJCP judges on and talk through it. I think there's a lot there. People don't really know about what it does and what it is, and we all try to kind of brew beer to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's like a healthy amount of demystifying that could be done by judges. But it's kind of like these people that are out in the ether with superpowers and they can taste everything. That's not true. There's a lot of things that I can't pick up that maybe somebody else can, but it's just putting in a lot of time and tasting a lot of beer, which I know sounds like a really hard job, but someone's got to do it.
There's probably an aspect of understanding your own limitations in that too, right?
Yeah, so confirmation bias, sensory bias, all these things. Like my number one quality that I could pick out of beer is acetaldehyde. I'm very sensitive to it for some reason. But when it comes to cardboard or oxidation flavors, very low.
So what flavor is acetaldehyde?
You could get, most people will pick it up as like a green apple, or to me, I get more on the squash, like raw pumpkin, raw squash side of beer, or it's a kind of a fermentation. I hesitate to call it an off flavor because it exists in every beer that we're drinking, but in really high levels, you get apple, green apple, squash. Green apple's not always a bad thing, but if you're, if you're drinking a stout or a brown ale, you don't really want to be punched in the face with green apple.
Yeah.
So in those cases, squash, green apple aren't appropriate. But it's understanding, that I'm very sensitive to that. It might be an acceptable level in the beer that I'm drinking. So it does take a lot of getting to know what you're sensitive to and what you're not sensitive to. Flavor spikes from Siebel, off flavor samples and off flavor kits are really helpful if you're just trying to get your palate. And they're relatively cheap. Just if you're ever curious about, what off flavors you pick up really well or not, spend $20, get an off flavor kit, and it's going to make your homebrews better because you'll be able to pick up these aromas.
I remember when I was first starting homebrewing, I think somebody called out buttery popcorn, and I think it stuck in my head, and I felt like every beer I brewed for the first year I tasted buttery popcorn. Nobody else did, I just did. So it is good to actually, you hear us talk about, that buttery popcorn or the green apple or the cardboard or the rubber, but to actually get one of those kits and taste what it really is. I think that's some of the issues that we have around it is people hear these terms and these flavors, but they don't really have experience tasting it in beer or knowing exactly what it is that you're tasting in beer. So
right, and also off flavors aren't. They don't have to be scary. If you have an off flavor in your beer, either it's a learning opportunity somewhere in your process that you understand. Like I can go back and maybe I just need to diacetyl rest a little bit longer, or maybe I'm not letting my yeast attenuate fully, or something like that. So there's issues, and off flavors doesn't mean you just made the worst beer on the planet.
Yeah,
it's just
They can also be style dependent a bit too.
Absolutely. Like if I'm drinking a bitter, like a English style bitter, I like a little bit of diacetyl. I'm not gonna lie.
no, and I mean that's the same thing with certain styles kind of are expected to have that. Pilsners, the DME,
A little bit of
and like you said, English styles with a little bit of diacetyl. I've talked to brewers before that I've asked questions about why are you okay with this level of diacetyl in your beer, and they're like blatantly open and saying this is what our clientele likes and what they expect, and some breweries like that's just what may be officially a flaw is kind of local taste or.
Well, and I think that lands a great point in that rounding back to competitions, BJCP is a standard for what a technically perfect beer should be.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean that if it's not within BJCP guidelines, it's going to be a bad beer.
Right.
And in very, very many cases, it's going to be a great beer.
Yeah.
There's not really a BJCP category for fruited sours, like intensely fruited, kettle sours and stuff like that with like lactose and whatever. Like they'd probably fall into some experimental category or something, but they're unparalleled in terms of their popularity right now.
Yeah.
And the BJCP works off of homebrewers as a guide as to what categories should be incorporated.
Yep.
We brew what's popular, and they then every however many years create guidelines to reflect as best as they can that style, which is why we've seen like California sours and New England IPAs and stuff like that sort of like pop up recently. New Zealand Pilsner.
But I think this is a good transition into, because again, in true Michigan brew style, we've kind of gone way. So let's transition into what we're here to talk about is the Bell's Homebrew Competition, which is not a BJCP certified competition.
Correct.
This this is a unique competition. Like Ian said, it's a free competition, but what you get for winning is far outweighs a lot of the little
Probably any other
medals and
competition in
bling.
Michigan.
Yeah, it is absolutely. So we tease that we're here today to kind of give you the sneak peek of what the competition is, when the competition is this year, and then Ian's going to go over the details. So we can dive into that.
Yeah.
When is the competition?
So so we'll start off with the kickoff. So July 11th, it's coming up pretty quick, is when you'll be able to sign up for wort pickup. So if you're not familiar with the competition,
It's a great segue.
you sign up online for a time slot. We're going to do pre-assigned pickup times, which was a big request. So starting July 11th, you'll have access to register, which needs your name, your email, and then what time you want to come pick up your wort. And they're going to be windows. And I think we're going to start at 3 p.m. until 5:30 or so. We're going to be open to 200 participants, so we can have 200 competitors. Each are allowed 5 gallons of wort. If you want 5 gallons of wort, you don't have to take 5 gallons. We can talk about that later due to some strategy.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. But the wort pickup day is going to be July 31st.
Okay.
So show up 3 o'clock, July 31st, pick up your wort, get whatever ingredients you need, and go home and brew a good beer.
So can you give a little bit of feedback on, or a little bit of background on that for those that aren't familiar with the Bell's Homebrew Competition? Like, what do you mean by wort pickup? Like,
Yeah. So every homebrew competition will brew wort for the competitors. And we're using all 100% Michigan grown malt from Empire Malt. It's going to be great as it is every year. You sign up for the competition, and the only thing you have to do is come pick up your wort in a bucket, in a corny keg, in a carboy, in a growler bottle, as long as it's sanitized. And then from there, you're basically brewing, extract brewing. You go home, you boil it, throw in your yeast, and you got yourself a beer. And there's a lot more that can go into it.
Yeah, just to call it out, because I know I've been, if I'm looking at my phone now, it's because I don't have my computer, so I can't see comments. So I've been trying to watch. Brian's the only one that's driving tonight. If you were here at the beginning, you saw that. So we did have a question from Brian Newcomb at Gluten-Free Homebrew Supply, which is, can I do a gluten-free entry? And no, the answer right now is no, because it is a supplied wort. That's the kitsch, or the specialty of this competition is Bell's is making the beer for you, or the wort for you, and we're all coming together here, at the Eccentric Cafe on the 31st. We're gonna take that wort and go home, and then it's how you treat it. You can add whatever you want, right?
You can add whatever you want as long as the base of it is our wort. You can do whatever you want to it, and except for, and I want to throw this out there, you cannot put cannabis in it. We will not judge beers with marijuana in them.
Thank you for
clarifying. I'm going to
Clarification.
be very clear, because not that it's a personal thing, but it is a health and safety thing. We last time we had the competition, we had about 4 or 5 beers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So people might ask, why do you have to even say that? Well, if we say you can do whatever you want to the beer, people will do whatever they want to the beer.
Yeah.
So just throw that out to do whatever you want,
except cannabis,
except for
any other illicit
cannabis
substances,
or anything that might harm one of the judges. We appreciate that. Unfortunately, it's all Michigan pale malt. We don't have a gluten-free option yet. You know, that's something we definitely look into, though. I think gluten-free brewing is
That'd be an interesting, twist to a whole batch one year.
right. And when you
Yeah,
guys come and
yeah.
pick up a gluten-free beer or gluten-free wort, can you imagine that?
So we brought that up, and since Brian's in the comments asking that question, just a little preview on shows that are coming up. We are actually going to be doing a show with Brian Newcomb from Gluten Free Homebrew, or I keep messing up his name. It's Gluten Free Brew Supply, I think is the name of the show or store. We actually got a kit from Brian, and Brian and I got together and brewed a gluten-free beer this weekend. First time we've ever done that, and we're going to have him on later in the month, and we're going to be able to sample that beer. You couldn't be there because you were on vacation.
Yeah, I was up north chasing my child around.
Right on.
Yeah.
So that'll come later this month. We'll get into a show on gluten-free beer and try the beer that Brian and I made on my single tier yesterday.
2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Yeah.
God.
It's still the weekend. Technically, for some
I did a
us,
lot of
yeah.
manual labor yesterday, so I kind of blacked out in my head.
What I want to clarify, Ian, Brandon says no cocaine. Right?
No illegal
Yeah,
substances.
please,
Okay.
no cocaine either.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean,
Anything on
yeah,
that
anything.
spectrum?
No,
Yeah.
nothing on that spectrum.
Right. So we're pickup average July 31st. It's going to be great. We're going to be running some deals in the store. We're also happy to announce that we'll be carrying Omega yeast now.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
So that's a partnership that we recently struck up, and
Is that in addition to or in replacement of?
in addition to the yeast that we're currently carrying. So Imperial as our liquid yeast, our main liquid yeast that we carry, we will still be carrying Imperial yeast.
Cool.
We are adding Omega, and it's exciting because they're coming out with some really exciting new products,
There's some, like,
including
genetic stuff.
Yup. And they're doing a new pack size, so slightly larger, a higher yeast count,
Oh, no
cell
way.
count.
Okay.
So keep an eye out for that. We're very excited to be partnering with
Is
them.
that like a permanent change? Like they're doing a new larger pack size instead of the old pack size?
As far as I understand,
Okay.
they'll be launching a new 50% more pack size.
Cool.
And some new strains as well that we'll have.
Yeah, I saw that they just teased a new strain today. Tropic something.
Yeah, it had like a owl.
Owl,
or
yeah,
something. Yeah.
and it had no details other than like
Yeah.
a picture of an owl and some citrus fruit, maybe a dragon fruit.
Yeah,
So
I
if you
I haven't signed an NDA or anything. I also don't want to get in trouble. I will say that this new project that they're going to be launching is exciting in terms of what it means for dry hopping and what it means for juicy beers, and we'll say what it means for files. And
I will speak out and say what I know as far as like rumors go. Is that they're introducing a beer that contains a yeast that produces beta glucosidase,
Mhm.
which is able to sort of unlock bound files in hops. So that's a rumor that I've heard online, and I have no affiliation with with Omega at all. So, you know,
But if you go back, I think it was in late November, early December of last year, we did have Lance Shaner on the show. I forget the episode number off the top of my
he
head.
did hint to something like that on our show.
And you did, yeah. So, go back and check that out. Check out Omega East. Lance was cool to come and hang out with us for a couple hours. And they are doing some really cool shit over there.
It's honestly
Omega.
probably one of the most technical shows of
It
It was.
He's such a smart dude.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
I know I was intimidated in like, how do you address an attorney, doctor, PhD? This guy was definitely smarter than all of us. Super cool to hang out with, though. Really friendly. Omega East has got some cool shit. So I'm excited
They sure
to
do.
see that you guys are bringing them in shop. That's awesome.
Yeah, so look for that when you come in for your wort pickup. We might have some free yeast to be given away. Not only from Omega, we also, long-standing partnership with Imperial, who makes amazing quality yeast. Their yeast is fantastic. Cell counts they get in those little bags is just ridiculous. Also Lallemand with all of the the wild brew series that they have. The wild pitch, the Philly sour, the dry Vossies that they have. So there's going to be some cool yeast deals. Going to be getting in some new hop varieties hopefully, and some new equipment. So if you're looking to upgrade some stuff, now that I kind of have a hand in what's getting put in the store, I am such a big nerd that I want the new cool gadget for home brewing. So
Like all-in-one system.
all-in-one system. So I want like all-in-one. I'm interested in like the tilt hydrometers, that are going to tell you your beer and its temperature, your gravity. These tap coolers, the counter pressure bottle fillers, which are really handy for people that have kegerator systems. So
I love that filler.
oh my god,
Ryan has one. I bought
I have
one.
two.
Oh, you have two now?
No, it's,
I have one dedicated for sours and stuff just because.
Oh, that's a good idea.
really.
I love the tap cooler bottle filler. Though.
It's just it's shocking how such a small piece of equipment can
Yeah.
so beautifully fill a bottle of beer.
So speaking of the staggered work pickups and stuff like that,
Yeah.
David asks, so no homebrew expo this year.
That is not the case.
Okay.
So, let's. So, the day of the wort pickup is going to be focused on the brewer. So, getting the ingredients you need, picking up your wort, and giving you the time to go home and make a good beer. We don't want to hold it up too long because you got to get brewing with it. Right?
Yeah.
Our homebrew expo is going to happen September 19th in conjunction with the announcement of that year's winner and runner-ups.
Ah.
All right, so real quick, since we're getting there, if the 31st is the pickup, when is the turn-in?
The turn-in is, let me check my notes, because I will forget, September 3rd. So all submissions are due Friday, September 3rd to the Bell's General Store. Drop them off
So
there.
you have just a little over 4 weeks
Yep.
to turn this around this year. That's
Pretty
great.
good.
That's fine.
Yep. So
Yeah. In fact, I remember in previous years, it was like 2 months almost sometimes, which made it
Sometimes.
really hard for the people that wanted to brew like an IPA or something.
Yep.
Mhm.
So just enough time if you want to do a lager. It's just a little, if you need to condition your IPA, if you need to, if you're doing something with fruit, you have enough time to taste it and make sure you're getting it diacetyl rested. So I think that's like a pretty good amount of time. So all final submissions due September 3rd. Judging will happen September 13th. And then on September 19th, we will have the Homebrew Expo and announcements of the winners and runners-up.
Okay.
So we're going to have, 10 vendors. Hopefully, we're going to have some homebrew clubs be able to set up tents. We're going to have hopefully some other organizations that focus on brewing and home brewing be there.
Maybe you could have a live stream podcast team there.
Maybe if they want to set up a booth, I don't know.
It's an idea. You're a thinker. Still happens. Oh,
So the expo is still happening. It's just going to be happening now on September 19th as more of a celebration of homebrewing and a celebration of the community, coinciding with our the anniversary of Bell's and
Which anniversary is it?
it's one of them. The 30. 37? 36. I think it's 36.
it's just
Last
'cause-
year was 35. It's got to be
That's what it was.
36.
It's 'cause
Okay.
Brian and I we were talking about this the other night, and I thought I said we just had 35, right?
I think you're right.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, because it happened sort of,
COVID, yeah.
right as COVID happened, and all the cool things were planned did not happen. But this year, we're gonna have a homebrew expo to celebrate. So
So
It's kind of bringing
So-
it back to the roots.
Nail it
exactly,
down, yeah,
and I think coinciding the announcement of the homebrew winners, with our anniversary, kind of is, spot on for, the history of Bell's and what we love here in the community. That means a lot to us. So it's going to be perfect. So we'll have homebrew clubs set up. We're going to have some vendors, hopefully some local Michigan Empire Mall, Michigan Hop Alliance. Hopefully some people from there will come down and a few other surprises. So
Cool.
we'll be announcing the top 3 places and any honorable mentions. We're going to be having some raffles, giveaways. We're going to have a lot of good beer on tap, including the winner of 2020?
20. No, 2019.
2019's Bell's Homebrew Competition winner, Bill Blakely. His beer will go on tap September 19th, which is, I don't know if he knows that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bill, I hope you're watching.
Heard it here.
You got to get that beer brewing.
Yeah,
So that was an Imperial Coffee Blonde.
It was delicious. Yeah.
And I could talk a little bit about why that beer did so well. If you want. It was clean and clean in terms of free of off flavors. It drank beautifully. It was well balanced. It had coffee, vanilla, some other malt things, and it stood out because of the way that it basically drank. It was so clean. The coffee didn't come through too strong. The vanilla that was used didn't come through as synthetic. It came across as natural and complementary to not only the coffee that was in the beer, but also the base of the recipe. So the wort that we gave still came through. So we kind of thought that was special, was tasting a beer that was something completely different, than what the wort set you up for, but was able to still showcase it.
Mhm.
So it's kind of this balance of the creativity of the brewer, but also like, hey, this is the wort, and here's how I treated it, and it really did.
And then looking back at previous winners, there was a Damson Plum Saison. There's this Coffee Blonde. There was an Apricot IPA.
Yeah, there's a quest.
And shoot, many more that
they've been all
can't
over the
remember, but
place.
Yeah. So
I mean,
there's probably a trend, right, in terms of what maybe like a Bell's Homebrew Competition like winner might be in terms of a beer, right? You're not going to win maybe with like an American light lager, as it is, just like a clean American light lager.
Well, I think it would probably do well, but we are currently doing our this show from the Eccentric Cafe. So I think having an eccentric quality isn't going to be a bad thing.
Okay.
I will say that if you're just starting homebrewing, if you're thinking about doing this and you've never entered a competition, maybe you've only brewed one batch of beer, you don't have to do anything crazy. If you create a clean beer that tastes good, that has good fermentation quality, it will be noticed. Will it win? Maybe. Who knows? But that's what you're looking for.
Now, this is a unique thing to point out, because if I'm right, both of you started homebrewing off of this competition.
Yep.
Me the year after Jordan, I think, and because of Jordan.
Yep.
Right.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, this was the first batch of beer I ever brewed solo. Came directly from the Bell's Homebrew Competition, and every year since then, I have used it as a opportunity to kind of experiment with something new, something I haven't done before, or try to use it as a refining of something that I've been brewing all year and just trying to get dial in a specific flavor. But yeah, it's a great opportunity. I think out of the 10 years that I've been brewing, I think I've only missed one competition.
Have you missed one even? I don't know if you have. Last year.
No,
Yeah.
last
We
year,
all
yeah,
missed
but
that one.
everybody missed it.
Right.
I don't think I
you
did.
have.
I don't think I have.
No.
No, you're right.
Wow.
So I saw we had another comment that came in about adding different malt to the wort, and the answer is, like, you can do whatever you want with this wort. You can go and steep. You can go and you can brew or mash out a whole separate batch and blend it together.
Yep.
You can add whatever fruit, adjuncts, specialty,
Malt extract.
weird shit you want to do. I mean, I think the rules of the competition are you have to use the Bell's wort.
Which Ian says is going to. He has some additional information about that apparently.
About the
The
wort.
wort.
Oh, well, not much about the wort, but
Okay.
I did want to suggest a couple of things. One, if this is your first time homebrewing, don't feel like you need to get 5 gallons of wort. You know, if you have a 2-gallon kettle at home and that's all you can brew with, you don't need 5 gallons of wort. You
Okay,
know?
cool.
If you're an advanced home brewer, you pick up 5 gallons of wort, we only need 4 bottles. So you could do, you know, theoretically 4 different batches of beer based off of that one wort.
Interesting.
So
concept.
you could,
Okay.
so
Or
you
you
could,
don't have to, you're not limited?
we don't know. We don't know what you do with the rest of the wort.
No, but I mean, on submissions.
Oh,
if I
yes,
One
you
submission.
could do one submission.
But I can break it out and do whatever I want
Yeah.
and pick the best.
And in terms of strategy, I think it might be interesting to brew, if you know, two beers, 2.5 gallon beers, and choose the one that came out the best.
Never even
Or
thought about that,
brew
honestly.
4 or 5 1-gallon beers, you know, and see which one comes out the best. We need 4 bottles, 4 12-ounce bottles for judging, and the rest of that wort is yours. So, and you know, if you're an experienced home brewer, or maybe you're a new home brewer and you want to kind of mess around with something different, why don't you try doing a couple different beers? Why don't you try blending? Why don't you try blending this wort with, you know, something you had brewed previously? There's a lot of different things you could do. Exactly, and part of the point of it being a free competition is that $20 or $30 you would use for your entry fee. You could put that into some new hops that you've never used, or you could buy some fruit puree that, you know, might be interesting in your beer. Try some different yeast. You have a lot of freedom with this competition, and we're not going to be judging based on style guidelines like we talked about earlier. It's you know, it's more, is this beer interesting? Does it taste good? Does it have off flavors? Is the overall impression or the general effect of the beer coming through? You know, and it's sort of a more conversational judging, which we could talk about more if you like.
Yeah, no, we did talk about that this is kind of that objectional judging. You know, this is what you guys like, what you want to see on tap at the Eccentric Cafe. So who is the judge? Or who's judging?
Okay, so we have a panel of people that work at the brewery that judge the beers. So brewers, sensory specialists, people that work in the lab, that on the daily are searching out off flavors. We have people that will rub and select our hops every single year that we put in Two Hearted. So we have people that are very skilled in sensory and understanding what, you know, quality looks like, and also what is enjoyable from a consumer standpoint, and what also, we all drink beer here. So if we're going to drink it again or not, that's also, you know, kind of a factor. On top of that, we have people that are within the company. Maybe they work downtown at the cafe. Maybe they're bartenders. Maybe they're store clerks that work in the store and help people with homebrew. They will receive some sensory training and sort of intro to beer judging, you know, so that nobody's going into this judging these beers completely blind. Everyone will have an understanding of what to be looking out for. And I know a big, you know, topic around the competition in the past has been feedback, trying to get more feedback, because if this is your first time ever brewing, feedback, you know, might be hit or miss, but you want some maybe affirmation, or you want somebody to tell you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, to give some direction. And then if you're a pro home brewer, you know, like, you know, people at this table, you're going to want to know why your beer didn't win, or why, you know, or why it didn't pass on to another round. So I have created a new judging sheet this year that will contain more parameters than it previously had, which I believe was
It's been requested, I think, a lot.
yeah. And as a home brewer, that frustration of getting a beer back and not knowing, hey, how far it got or why it didn't progress is frustrating.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure the judges are well equipped to provide that feedback, and then create a platform where the competitors will receive their feedback electronically. So directly to your email. So it's another reason it's important to provide you a working email, is because instead of having to come in and get your wet piece of paper back with some judges' comments, we'll scan them and email them to you.
Oh, cool.
So you have, you have that feedback, and hopefully it's useful.
Some of my favorite feedback has actually come from Bell's comps. Just and it's funny because if I think about it, I've never seen a pumpkin beer. So I did a pumpkin beer once, and I got back great beer. I hate pumpkin, which is valid. That's fine. I'm totally good with that. So whoever, I'm assuming it might have been Dave or somebody who was the final choice on that, said, no, we're not doing a pumpkin beer.
Oh, that's funny.
I remember one year I had turned in a judging sheet that didn't have like the backside to it or whatever, but they had drawn in the check marks like, first table, second table, and then they had drawn in like final round and check marked it and then scribbled it out.
Don't tease me.
JK.
That's cool. I appreciate the scanning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's time to move into the 21st century a little bit with online registration and also electronic feedback. It's going to be hopefully a game changer for most people.
Oh yeah, I think it will be.
So we've talked about the comp a little bit, and we did mention that Bill's beer is going to be on tap that day, which is awesome. But what do you win? I mean, if you get this, of course, it's more than just getting your beer on tap at Bell's.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, and I think something most homebrewers would be very stoked on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on top of that, the winner of the competition not only gets a hand in brewing that beer on our 3-barrel system, they are also entered into the Great American Beer Festival Pro-Am competition with Bell's. So
It's the music of beer.
I'm usually able to pause my mic.
We have no control. What's sad is we usually are able to like drop ourselves off camera if we have to hit the head or do something, and we're screwed this time. So
it's like a round table.
Well, no, what they can't see is we actually have bottles under the table right now.
Prepared.
So the winners get what?
Okay. Yeah. So the winners brew their beer on our B1 system. They get entered into the Great American Beer Festival Pro-Am competition with Bell's. And then they also get flown out to the Great American Beer Festival. They don't pay for it. They get to enjoy several days of heavy drinking, amazing beer, the best beer, honestly, in the world, definitely in the United States. And then they get the honor of, being represented by, one of the best breweries in the country.
100%.
And I think that is a big, that's a big thing. And I'm still kind of gobsmacked by it.
It's probably like the best prize of any homebrew competition.
It is.
Honestly.
Yep.
I mean, Michigan Beer Cup's near and dear to my heart, and nationals. Brian just won silver medal for American Wild Ale.
Ridiculous.
Congratulations.
Job, man.
Brian's getting a medal. And all the comps we ever entered, we get a medal, we might get a bag of grain, maybe a cool little gadget.
Money to enter this competition.
But we don't get to go to Great American Beer Fest and brew our beer for free.
For free competition.
And brew our beer with your crew, right?
Yeah, I mean, the people that make the beer that if you like Bell's, the beer that you love will brew your beer, and you'll get to brew it with them. And I've never done it. I work here. I don't get to go in and brew a beer that I want, and so it's a very special thing to be able to
just get that feedback and that loop.
Yeah, and then you could come and enjoy a beer and invite all of your friends and say, my beer is on tap at the Eccentric Cafe.
So we've been lucky enough that the last 2 winners have been keepers of craft, which is we are all keepers, right? So this is our club. So Matt McQuillan won 2 years ago with Heather's request, or
Apricot IPA.
3 years ago with Heather's
3 years
request,
ago, yeah.
Apricot IPA. And Bill Blakesley won 2 years ago with his Imperial Coffee Blonde. And it was an amazing experience to come down here for Matt, not only to be here when he won, but to also then come back and have that beer on tap and drink it. So I do want to take a moment to shout out for our local club. During COVID, there was a competition that happened at ArcLight that was won by a keeper in Kalamazoo, Brandon Edwards, and his beer, Mango IPA, is currently on tap. He got to go brew that with ArcLight, and it's currently on tap at ArcLight. So if you guys can journey down to Waterville, you'll see it. It says Brandon's award-winning Mango IPA on the board.
It's a catchy name.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
Go check that out. But I mean, yeah, it's not. It's. I just don't want to discount it. But you get to, we got to drink Matt's beer here. We're going to drink the Bill's beer here, and then God willing, we'll have another keeper.
Yeah.
For 2021.
We've got a good club. I think we have the most talented group of brewers in Michigan. I don't want to say that because I'm biased, because I definitely am. We're doing pretty good down here.
You make some good beer. I mean, you judge enough competitions, you realize that your home, the people that you brew with, actually make some fucking killer beer.
That's so. It's cool that you say that, and I 100% agree. And it's because Jason came into our club when our club first started, and he's like, guys and girls,
People.
yeah,
People.
if you want to brew better beer, we're all becoming friends here, and sometimes friends have a hard time telling a friend their beer shit, because sometimes it really is.
It is.
Enter competitions and get your feedback, and if you get an 18, then you get an 18 or something, and you understand why. And Jason's gotten a freaking 18 or something like that. It was 28 or something.
No, I have. So what my position in the club is competition coordinator. I'm here to encourage people to enter competitions because you do get the best feedback, minus NHC this year. But you do get good feedback on beer, or when you're being judged, by people you don't know. And I've taken a beer. Brian and I did a presentation together about brewing for competition, and I've taken a beer, a coffee stout that I made that scored 18 or 19 or whatever, and I've built on that, and I've taken that feedback, and I've tweaked the recipe, and I've adjusted my process, and I've improved my, whether it be my fermentation or the process on how I store and process the beer. I don't laugh at me on fermentation.
No, I'm laughing at Brian on our comments.
Right on. He's KGB.
Yeah, I don't know.
Damn it, Brian. But anyway, I've taken this coffee stout.
Really?
That's gone from an 18 to being the most metal beer I have, right? With 8 awards and regularly scores in the high 40s. So you're only going to get better by having somebody else try your beer and give you that open and honest feedback. Because as much as I like Brian, I'm always going to tell him, yeah, that's a good beer, Brian. But I'm not. It's hard to tell him, that it has flaws. It's hard. Actually, it's not. Brian and I.
The better you get to know people, I think the
Right.
easier it is to tell them open and honestly about their beers, and I appreciate that about Ian and you and Jordan, and so I guess that's again one of the bigger pluses of joining the homebrew club is that you're going to make friends with the longer you're in that club, and the closer you are with those friends, they care about if you care about your hobby, then they care about you caring about your hobby.
Yeah.
They're going to give you that critical feedback.
So it's always good to get impartial.
Because you want that too.
Right. Impartial outside feedback is always going to be best, and we do. I know, Brian and I and the other officers and keepers, we do try to give real, and I know you do too. I read some of your comments. You really try to give that feedback. You cared. And we tried to do that instead of just telling you your beer is good. Which is what I've gotten from judges recently. So enter competitions. Even if you don't think your beer is that's the thing. It bugs me the most when I hear people think, "Oh, I don't have anything that's competition worthy." Man, it all is. If you got $10 laying around or 14 or whatever it is, put it in a competition. Who knows? You'll at least get feedback. You're paying 10, 12, 14 bucks, unless it's nationals and you're paying 30 bucks. For a professional or a licensed taster, not licensed, but certified taster, to give you feedback on your beer, whether it's good or not. It's
Yeah, and I'll also say from a judge's perspective, I don't mind if I get a beer that's not a 20. I don't care if I get a beer that's not a 30. I
right.
oftentimes will prefer those opportunities because one, it might be an area where I can provide some valuable feedback to the brewer. It's also for me an opportunity to understand like my training and re-solidify how I smell beer. If I'm getting something with an off flavor that I don't know, that's a learning opportunity for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
But more than that, I like the opportunity to give feedback and to say, I'm tasting just a bunch of, banana, and it says an IPA. You shouldn't have that much banana in it.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, let's talk about your fermentation, and here's some tips on how to fix that.
I've taken valuable feedback on that coffee stout in particular. Whether they're telling me it's too much malt bittering, or my fermentation was off, or under attenuated. I've taken all of those steps and been able to tweak that beer to make it the award-winning beer that it is today. And
you also, on to that point, you brewed the same beer several times.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I think that is a good point. You don't have to brew something new every time you're brewing a beer. You could brew the same beer.
That's honestly how you grow.
Yeah.
I mean, when I used to brew a cinnamon stout, every year, I would do it, and I decided one year it's like I'd never brew it without cinnamon, and decided I was just going to deconstruct it and brew the base beer as it was. Turned out amazing, and that's what ended up getting me gold medals at the Michigan Homebrew Fest.
I got to award that gold medal to
Yeah,
you too.
yeah.
That was awesome.
That's a cool.
And too, just to call out another comment, we've got Adam Cagle, who threw a wit beer in State Fair last year and took the cup 2 years ago.
Yep.
COVID.
2020 doesn't
Just
exist.
But Brian and I were there, and like Adam said, you might win State Fair. He threw his wit beer in. It was a recipe that he tweaked from another member of the club and put it in State Fair. And Brian and I got to stand there and watch him get this big ass, huge, obnoxious trophy, and then walk around the fairgrounds with him.
Yeah, walk around behind him.
Yeah, it was amazing. All these people were like, "Whoa, what did you win? Did you have the biggest cow or pig?"
I bring the best beer.
I mean, yeah, I made the best beer, and then everyone was like, "Fucking
Fuck
word."
yeah, that's way better than having the biggest fucking pumpkin or something.
All right, so we talked about not being able to take each other off stream, but I'm too old for this shit, so I'm gonna step away from
All right.
We'll see you back in a sec. So what else is changing for the competition this year? We talked about, you guys have used Empire Malt the last couple of years to make wort. Pickup times are scheduled this year. So it's all going to be on one day?
Yep. So we're just doing a 1-day pickup. So for just a little bit of behind the scenes of how this wort actually gets made.
Yeah.
So the brewers for our B1 facility come in at midnight the night before.
When you say B1, that's downtown here, right?
Yep.
Not in Comstock?
Yeah, so that is our B1 brewery. We call it B1 because it was the first brewery. It was the brewery that Larry originally brewed on.
Okay, cool.
So the 3-barrel system that he brewed on, in 1985 is the area that we're still brewing today. So we call that B1. It's downtown. They come in at midnight and they do a back-to-back brew. So they're brewing for 15 hours, just back-to-back.
It's a long day.
And if those of you that have homebrewed, the mash is probably the most boring part of the brew day.
Just kind of sitting
You're
there.
just sitting there,
Yeah.
right? So imagine doing that, and then you don't get the satisfaction of boiling and adding your hops.
Right.
So they don't get that. So they brew their beer, they mash it, they do a minimal boil just to make sure everything is sanitary, everything's been killed. Then they start brewing their second batch. And then so we have basically, 200, we got a couple hundred gallons of beer by the end of that. And that is done right at 3 o'clock p.m. on that day, on July 31st, is when they're done brewing. They don't brew it and then go home and then come back and serve it. It's literally 15 hours later from when they started, you get the wort. It is fresh, barely cooled. So that's how that works. So in order to make things a little bit easier for the competitors and also for the brewers, because they're going to want to go home and sleep, we set up everything online. So you'll register online, you'll choose the time slot that you want to come and pick up your wort. You show up, pick it up, get some yeast, you go home and you brew. In terms of other changes to the competition, we're going to have medals this year.
Oh,
So for those of you that like to collect hardware, we're going to have some prizes for the top 2 spots that are not the winner. So second place, third place.
So how deep are you meddling? First, second, third?
First, second, and third, potentially honorable mentions as well, depending on how many entries we get. I hope we get 200.
sure.
So if you're out there and you know somebody who wants to homebrew, this is their opportunity to start. This is the catalyst that will get them into being a lifelong brewer.
Reach out to our page. Reach out to Keepers of Craft on Facebook too.
Please.
We would love to help you.
If you
Get
need
started.
if you need to borrow a kettle, if you need to borrow some bottles, you find a person that will help you do this thing. I want to get 200 entries. Okay, if we get 200 entries, we'll do some honorable mentions for good beer.
Cool.
I'll just say it. So that's going to be different. I'm also trying to think of any other changes. Oh, I'm making changes to our judging. So we're not adhering to BJCP guidelines. However, we will use them as a jumping off point to evaluate beers.
Okay.
Just in terms of what does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? And then my overall impression. So that's kind of the general. We're going to follow those parameters for judging because they're good. They're there for a reason. We won't be judging based on your style. So if you're brewing a beer, you don't even have to tell us the style. You could tell us something that's interesting about it, something you put into it, a different process that you did. More information isn't bad.
Call it a beauty pageant sort of competition.
Yeah, I would recommend taking notes on what you're putting into the beer for the judges, so that people will taste what you tell them to taste in a way.
Sure.
So for this competition specifically, I would use that to your advantage. I'm not saying that the people tasting the beer aren't skilled, but I will say that if you put coriander in your beer and we can't taste it, we're going to look for it.
Don't put coriander on your sheet.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
So-
actually, for those of us in our homebrew competitions, it's one of those things, like if it's not to style or it's not, if it's a nuance, if it's not a bold flavor, don't call it out on your sheet, because you're right. If you tell me that it's got coffee and I don't taste coffee, you're failed.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in some of the little mini competitions that we've had in the club, where we call out that it has to have, this flavor or this presence. But the flip side I would say is from a BJCP competition where you might be afraid to call out that it has something. This isn't that comp. You should be honest and say, if you can taste that apricot flavor and you got it from a hop, then call that out or whatever. But on that note, is there anything, when you're looking at the beer, when you're judging the beer and you're seeing what it's brewed, is there ever the possibility that you're just going to go, yeah, we're never going to make a beer with that?
Yes. So unfortunately, because we're a production brewery, we do have some limitations in terms of what can be rebrewed. So we can't brew beer with popular allergens. So I'm talking about peanuts, cashews, real almonds. Those are beers that will likely not be chosen because logistically we just couldn't do it.
That's a good call out.
Yeah.
Because I've actually heard a lot of people doing peanut beers or peanut butter beers,
And if you do a good peanut butter beer, it could still place. It likely will not win, unfortunately, because we can't brew it. We can. It's part of our ethos is we don't brew beer that people can by and large drink.
Sure.
Like with a popular allergen, we don't want anybody's life being at risk because we're brewing beer with peanuts.
Right.
Another weird thing that I won't talk a whole lot about, but blueberries. I'm just going to give a suggestion that you stay away from those.
Interesting.
I personally love blueberries in beer. I think it's something that's unique to Michigan that we can put in beer.
Yeah.
Right.
A beer with blueberries will likely not place or at least win. So that's another recommendation to stay away from. So popular allergens and blueberries.
Is there any so I remember a friend of mine at a brewery that was doing a homebrew comp, and he had to eliminate some entries because they had Amarillo hops, and just it wasn't feasible for him to brew a beer with that. None of that?
No, you choose the hops or
Okay.
hops, the yeast.
You don't have to submit the entry. You have
malt.
to submit the recipe when you submit.
Yeah,
Right?
so take good notes. Yeah, I mean, be anal about the notes that you're taking when you're brewing your beer because it will have to be reproduced. And if it can't be reproduced, number two is going to make their beer, hopefully.
But that recipe doesn't have to be submitted when the beer is submitted.
No, you don't have to submit your recipe, but just understand that if you win the competition,
Yeah.
we're going to come knocking on your door and asking for the recipe. And if you say, honestly, I don't know what I used.
If you brewed the beer with a wild caught, yeast bacteria selection in your backyard or something
Yeah. I might love it,
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
but
I think that was cool with Matt and with Bill anyway. I know with Matt for sure, and I think with Bill, that's a beer that they had iterated on multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt had this cool history about Heather's request, and even how it came about, and he had brewed it multiple times, and so it was kind of natural for him to step through it with Bell's beer or Bell's wort. And I know Bill's brewed that coffee imperial blonde.
I think we even tasted it at our last when we were judging the cookie beers.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
beer was very similar to that.
Yeah, Bill's a great brewer.
He is. But yeah, take good notes. Please take good notes on your beer.
Yes.
Even if you don't know, if you're not confident that it's going to win, still take good notes because you'll be able to learn from it later.
Yep. So I think we pretty much covered the competition. What else do you have going on at the homebrew shop? I mean, there seems to have been some changes to the store anyway.
Yeah.
Layouts changed.
Yeah, we're changing things along. Layouts changed. I'm working on getting some new malt in. When I first started getting into homebrewing, malt, I think for a lot of people is it's the most important part of the beer, but it's the last thing you think about
Sure.
in kind of a way.
Yeah.
So I'm getting into malt sensory and, trying to select some malt that is going to show up in our beer and make our beer better. Anybody who brews with it. I mentioned that we're going to start carrying Omega yeast, so that's going to be a huge addition to the homebrew shop. We're working on getting some new hop varieties in, some experimental stuff that I'm excited about. In terms of equipment, we'll start carrying SS BrewTech equipment. We're going to start carrying tilt hydrometers. We're going to carry the entire line of Taprite. Yeah, the Taprite bottle fillers, can
The
fillers,
kind of
stuff
pressure
like that.
stuff,
Yep. And we're always making changes. Additionally, homebrew kids, we have a monthly series where somebody in the store, now more broadly downtown, will work together to come up with a beer, brew it on the homebrew scale, and then create clones of it. So a lot of homebrew clones. You can go on our website and look at them. There are some good ones. Last month we did a Hellas Lager that was sort of a cross between your traditional style Hellas Lager and Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. So all Cascade.
Shit, that sounds good.
We actually got some whole cone Cascade to brew with it. Before that, we did a Maibach. Next month, we have a sweet stout coming out with pomegranate.
Oh, wow.
So we're just kind of going crazy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff to look forward to. We have a spiced amber and a spiced brown coming out the month after that. So a lot of homebrew kits. Of course, our clone series that we have, we're going to be adding some beers to that. So there's some frequently asked for beers, from some of the people who like to brew the clones. We're going to have some coming out, maybe some double IPAs to look out for.
What about a Smitten clone? God damn it.
I'll write it down. I would love a Smitten clone. Smitten is one of my favorite
It
beers.
is my favorite Bell's beer that's been discontinued, I think, 2 or 3 times now.
Did you ever blend it with a Two Hearted?
No.
It's delicious.
What are the thoughts on a Mars clone?
A Mars clone? I would love that. So we're thinking about, we have a couple of double IPAs that we might have brewed in the past year coming out as clone kits. So just think about that.
Okay.
There's only a handful of Mars. Keep an eye out. If you ever have questions, everybody in the store is knowledgeable. Everyone's learning. Please call us, ask us questions, come in and talk to us. If you have suggestions for things you'd like to see in the store, or in terms of homebrew, please reach out. I love it. I love the feedback. I always ask the homebrew community for their input because they're the customers and I value it a lot. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you got questions or feedback.
Right on.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so let's do the TLDR of like the homebrew competition this year. The
Yeah.
pickup date is when?
Pickup date is July 31st.
And then
Sign up date.
Sign up date.
Sign up date begins July 11th, and that will be open until it's filled or until July 31st. 200 spots of 200 entries.
I went backwards, so thank you. Then the warp pickup will be
Work pickup is July 31st.
in the registered slots.
Yes.
And then the drop off,
You need to have your beer dropped off by September 3rd.
and is that the same date as the expo?
The expo is happening September 19th
Okay.
at Bell's Eccentric Cafe in the back bar.
The judging will be how long after the drop off?
10 days. So keep that in mind if you're doing anything bottle conditioned.
Okay.
You drop off on at the latest September 3rd. We will then judge September 13th. So you have 10 days. If anything needs to be conditioned, there's a 10-day period. All of the beer will be stored at around 38 degrees until it's time for judging. So
Good call out.
You're
Yep.
brewing with Bell's wort. You can do anything you want to it.
Anything you
The
want
only
to
rule is you have to use all of it, right?
you have to use,
Whatever you
The
pick
wort.
up,
You should use whatever you pick
you should
up.
use.
you should use whatever you pick
The
up.
rule is you have to use Bell's wort as your base.
Yes. It needs to be in the beer.
And then we also learned don't brew with allergens or Michigan blueberries.
Or
Indiana blueberries are
or
fine.
marijuana or cocaine.
Thank you. Or cocaine.
or
For-
cocaine.
Whoever mentioned that.
That's right.
That was Brandon. That was Brandon Edwards. Shout
Hey,
out to Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Brandon.
We'll do some housekeeping for Michigan Brews. So we have, this show tonight. Thank you, Ian, for joining us and letting us break this news, letting us do a show from this fucking awesome
Yeah, this is
facility. Next week, we should be back with Ascension Brewing. We've got one of the brewers there that's going to join us and talk about, what they got going on over there. Was there a few weeks ago. Had some really killer beer and some pretty awesome onion rings as well, but whatever. And then later in the month, we should be hooking up with Handmat Brewing. And then as we mentioned earlier, we're going to circle up with Brian Newcomb from Gluten Free Homebrew or Gluten Free Brew Supply, even though I butcher his name every time I say it. I'm sorry, Brian. And then, for me, myself, I'm plugging the Michigan Beer Cup. So if you're in Michigan, if you're watching the show, there's still entries open for the Michigan Beer Cup. Drop off for the west side of the state is you can drop your beer off at Bell's General Store. You can drop your beer off at Siciliano's, or there's a place in Traverse City, which I can't remember right now. I think Fresh Coast or something like that. Anyway, bring your beers to Bell's. I'm going to pick your beer up in a couple of weeks and take it off. But anyway, entries for the Michigan Beer Cup are open right now until we hit 125 entries. Your beer has to be dropped off by the 16th.
State Fair.
State Fair is already closed. Glen Cap's already closed. I think that's the last one. The last big one for the year is going to be Michigan Beer Cup. So if you're a home brewer in Michigan, enter the cup. It's $10. check on the website. There's more drop-offs. There's East Coast or East Side drop-off, Mid-State drop-offs. I'm just in charge of the West Side. Those are the ones I know.
Or by all means, make a quick trip down to Bell's and have a pint
absolutely.
out here and get some pickup.
Yep, grab some beer. And
Pick Ian's brain.
yeah, come talk to me if you got recipe questions, if you got quality concerns. You could bring in a beer, I'll taste it, and I'll do my best to tell you if it's good or not.
Nobody
Yeah,
says
that's
no to free
amazing
homebrew.
feedback.
Right, you know,
there.
it's it's hard getting free beer from people, but I'll do it, and I'll help.
The big thing is whether you're from the Kalamazoo area or anywhere else in the country, find a homebrew club.
Yes.
Brian
Yeah.
mentioned this on Reddit the other day. Somebody asked like a question about how do I get into homebrewing, or me and my partner are new to the area and we want to homebrew. And you said it, join a homebrew club. So look up, look in your area, go to AHA. They'll point you towards homebrew clubs in your area, or just Google it. If you're in the Kalamazoo area, you've got Keepers of Craft and Kalamazoo Libation Organization of Brewers Club, and a lot of good people between the two clubs that'll gladly drink your beer for free and give you some feedback.
Yeah.
So
Brian, no magic mushrooms.
no magic,
No.
no illicit substances.
I'm getting nervous now. God dang. I'm not going to drink your beer. Make sure I don't judge that one.
So thanks again for having us here. Thanks again for
Of course.
giving us free beer. And it's been awesome chatting with you.
We can't wait for competition this year.
It's gonna be
Like,
great.
I'm so
Absolutely.
glad it's coming back. Like, it's a celebration, for Jordan and I, for sure of just how we got into this hobby.
How you did it.
So cool. I love that.
All right, so you got to bear with us. Brian's gonna start the outro. I'll never leave him in charge again. And then, of course, as general, we talk through the outro. You can hear us.
Yep.
Cheers.
Hey, in the near
Cheers.
future, we should be shooting our official intro and outro. Maybe. Who knows? Thanks, everybody.